Once upon a time, in a small village at the foot of a great mountain, there lived a young man named Elias. The village was poor, and life was hard, but the people were kind and worked together to survive. Elias was known for his strength and his willingness to help others. He dreamed of one day climbing the great mountain that towered over their home. The elders of the village warned him that the mountain was dangerous, that many had tried to climb it and failed. Some had even disappeared, never to return. But Elias was determined. He believed that if he could reach the summit, he could bring back knowledge or treasures that would help his village prosper. One morning, with a small bag of supplies and the blessings of his family, Elias set out on his journey. The first part of the climb was easy. The sun was shining, and the path was clear. But as he climbed higher, the air grew thin, the wind howled, and the rocks became slippery. On the third day, disaster struck. A storm rolled in, and Elias lost his footing. He tumbled down a steep slope, crashing against the rocks until he came to a stop in a shallow cave. His leg was badly injured, and his supplies were scattered. The storm raged on outside, trapping him in the cave. For days, Elias lay there, cold and hungry, his hope fading. He thought of his village, of his family, and how they would never know what happened to him. But then, something inside him stirred. He remembered the words of an old philosopher he had once read: "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." Elias realized that giving up was not an option. He had to find a way to survive. Using a piece of cloth from his torn clothing, he bandaged his leg. He drank rainwater that dripped from the cave ceiling. Slowly, he gathered his strength. When the storm finally passed, he crawled out of the cave and began the long, painful journey back down the mountain. Every step was agony, but he kept going. When Elias finally returned to his village, he was weak and scarred, but alive. The villagers were amazed. They had given him up for lost. As he recovered, Elias told them of his ordeal and what he had learned. He spoke of resilience, the power to keep going even when all seems hopeless. The villagers listened, and his words stayed with them. Years later, when a terrible drought struck the land, it was Elias who encouraged them not to give up. They dug deeper wells, shared their food, and helped one another. Because of his resilience, the village survived. Elias never did climb the mountain again, but he didn't need to. He had already discovered the greatest treasure of all, the strength of the human spirit. His story became a legend in the village, passed down from generation to generation. And whenever someone faced hardship, they would remember Elias and his journey up the mountain. They would remember that no matter how hard life gets, resilience can carry us through. Another story of resilience comes from a woman named Lina. She was born in a war-torn country where every day was a struggle. As a child, she saw things no one should ever see: homes destroyed, families torn apart, hunger and fear everywhere. When she was 10, her parents made the difficult decision to send her away to a safer place. They knew they might never see her again, but they wanted her to have a chance at life. Lina traveled alone for weeks, hiding on trucks and walking for miles, until she reached a refugee camp. Life in the camp was not easy. There was never enough food, and the nights were cold. But Lina refused to let despair take hold of her. She taught herself to read using old newspapers she found. She helped care for the younger children, telling them stories to keep their spirits up. One day, a visiting teacher noticed her intelligence and determination and arranged for her to go to school in a nearby city. Lina worked harder than anyone else, studying late into the night. She knew that education was her only way out. Years later, Lina graduated from university with a degree in medicine. She became a doctor and dedicated her life to helping others, especially refugees like herself. She often spoke about the power of resilience, how even in the darkest times we can find light if we keep moving forward. She once said, "The world may break you 1,000 times, But if you stand up 1,001 times, you are unstoppable. These stories, Elias and Lina, are not just tales of survival. They are reminders of what human beings are capable of when they refuse to give up. Resilience is not about never falling. It is about rising every time we fall. It is about finding strength we didn't know we had. History is full of such stories. Think of Thomas Edison, who failed 1,000 times before inventing the light bulb. When asked about his failures, he said, "I did not fail. I just found 1,000 ways that did not work." Or Helen Keller, who, despite being blind and deaf, learned to communicate and became an inspiration to millions. These people did not have easy lives. They faced obstacles that would have crushed most of us, but they kept going. Resilience is not something we are born with. It is something we build, like a muscle. Every time we face a challenge and overcome it, we grow stronger. Every small victory prepares us for bigger battles. The philosopher Seneca once wrote, "Fate leads the willing, and drags along the unwilling." Those who embrace resilience do not wait for life to get easier. They become stronger instead. So how do we build resilience? First, we must accept that suffering is a part of life. Bad things will happen. We will face loss, failure, and pain. But these things do not define us. What defines us is how we respond. Second, we must learn to adapt. Like a tree that bends in the wind but does not break, we must be flexible. If one path is closed, we find another. Third, we must hold on to hope. Even the smallest hope can be a light in the darkness. Finally, we must remember that we are not alone. Elias had his village. Lina had the people who helped her along the way. No one is resilient all by themselves. We need each other. Sometimes, resilience means asking for help when we need it. In the end, resilience is more than just surviving. It is about finding meaning in our struggles. It is about growing, learning, and becoming better because of them. The mountain will always be there. The storms will come, but so will the strength to face them. So the next time life knocks you down, remember Elias crawling out of that cave. Remember Lina studying by candlelight. Remember that the power to rise again lies within you. And no matter how many times you fall, you can always choose to get back up. That is the true power of resilience.